Maharakai, it's he's not in that grouping. He's also more on the assembly side. Now, to say that to just give a good framework to understand the dynamic. Like I said, uh, for me, that wasn't an interview.
Mm.
An interview, you have a person that you a guest, and you have questions. Some questions may be controversial, but other questions are informative. And
Yep.
so those questions are normally, you give to the person that you're interviewing, and you don't deviate from that. You stay on those questions, because you want to put out a good interview, right?
Yep.
And the controversial things, you give a person time to discuss it, to talk about it, to give their view on it. But what that was not an interview. What
Mm.
that was a marketing tool. And
Exactly.
and I say that because you know within the Hebrew Israelite community, um, the platform that you come from is a platform that deals in the psychological portion of our emotions. Okay, and so we got to be very careful with that, because when we talk about identity and we talk about just the whole aspect of identity, identity has been talked about in the Hebrew Israelite community for hundreds of years now.
Yeah.
Okay, for over 100 years. Okay, and so therefore, uh, as a Hebrew Israelite, I got into a point whereas I was like, and that came for me very early on. Like very early on, because I was already keeping Torah, um, before I just fully invested within the Hebrew Israelite communities. And so for me, identity was a good place to have, like, if you have a school, and you have a class called Identity 101, all right? But
Mm.
you have to graduate from Identity 101. Okay, you got to graduate from that, because what I see is within the Hebrew Israelite community is that, um, we tend to stay in that one class and keep repeating that same class. And if you stay in something too long, it becomes spoiled. So you have to become more creative in that environment to keep the people coming. So the only way to do that sufficiently, is to provide chaos, or to provide an enemy, or to create a someone to uh, to put that they're opposing you, and so now you got somebody to try to continue to prove who you are, and whose you are, right? But that also, like there's a point in that interview that I believe was very deceptive,
Mm.
because he asked you about, like, well, who's dwelling. You say that, who's dwelling in the land of Israel, and you
Exactly.
made it known that America is basically running and controlling Israel. That Israelis don't really control that land,
Nope.
and I think that should be thought provoking, right? That should
Mm.
be like that should be a place that you begin to, okay, how so, and but he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. What he does is he actually shortens the question, or he gets off it very quickly, and he goes to the curses. Now,
Hmm.
but then he comes back, like, and he makes like this little point where it's like, through editing, and he comes in and says, "Hey, the reason that I asked this question to the rabbi was because I wanted him to bring forth the idea about, America. But what he doesn't realize is that America and Israel is allies." Now, I'm gonna tell you something. The idea is that when you say that to a Hebrew Israelite, you bring forth the idea to the people that this particular rabbi is illusional, that
Hmm.
he's disillusioned. Okay, and when you do that, you create an environment of saying, "Hey, I'm right, he's wrong,"
Exactly.
and then you bring it to a more spiritual level. You bring it into a spiritual level, because Hebrew Israelites are very spiritual people. We're very spiritual people, and so everything is spiritual. So Yeah, he has scales over his eyes, right? Or you'll hear comments like, "Oh yeah, they got it." Like who got it? Like who is the who, right? So the idea is that I don't believe that it was beneficial. What I believe that interview, and especially if he has, you say 22,000 views on that.
Yep.
Um, I said this when I was teaching in the Hebrew Israelite community. We were doing Facebook lives and so forth. I said, man, if you say look at those that's in the Hebrew Israelite community that's actually teaching Torah law, and then you look at those that's teaching conspiracy, you're gonna have 22,000 views versus 80 or 30 or 60.
Exactly.
You see? And so what that does, that setting that interview setting Hebrew Israelite community back probably another 10 years.
Hmm.
So and you can tell by the responses, if you listen to a lot of the comments, you read some
Yeah.
of those comments have nothing to do with the concepts that's being talked about. It's
Mm.
like they're taking stabs. And so I feel like it's a disservice because when he brought up the fact that when he starts talking about the curses, this is another area that's very, very sticky for me because it's very sensitive. Because it's
Hmm.
like, I'm not proud to identify myself by a curse. I'm excited about identifying my community about the good things that we do, not the curses. And he never touched on the commandments. He brought it up, but he never talked about Halakha. He never asked like, hey, so what do you feel like we should be doing? And that's the thing. As long as the people stay in that place of identity 101 and you keep creating false enemies, then the people would never see the true identity of the fathers. They will never get, they will never, you ask any Hebrew Israelite, hey, who are the sages? Now, mind you, I'm saying this randomly. You ask a random Hebrew Israelite. Now they got Hebrew Israelites that will answer you to the T. They know exactly who they are.
Yeah.
But when you really understand that that's what we should be talking about. Like who are they? All these sages that you say that you're against, all these sages that you say are Esau or whatever, pretending, man. That look at what the Mishnah Torah says. Rambam gave a list of them. It's
Yeah.
the prophets that you're reading every day, but you're basically disrespecting your father. So I feel like that it wasn't an interview, that it was a propaganda, that it had an agenda
A
before
hundred,
it even
a hun-
started.
100%. And my thing is like this, like why do I have these conversations when I know that they want to utilize me as an outsider to edify one or two of their points? You know what I'm saying? And so my thing is like this. So I get it. Like I've been talking to these guys on Clubhouse, different places for years, right? And the main objective for me doing that is just one, for people to know that I exist, right? That's one. And two, I know what their whole thing is. Their whole thing is, how do they validate who they are? One of their mechanisms of validating who they are is that, hey, the curses, right? And so the curses, they say, oh, well, we'll be on slave ships and no one will come to redeem you and this and blah, 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 all these types of things. So then I came back to him, and I think he cut it out completely. And I said to him, well, you're saying it as if you're reading it. I said to him, I said, you're reading it as slavery is a monolith, right? Like there's like the way I experience slavery in the diaspora is the same way the guy in Persia did, right? Or the guy who was in Greece, or the guy who was in South America. You're saying the subjugation and that, and then I said you're using slavery. And you're saying slavery, in the frame of a monolith, right? Slavery can mean different things for different people at different times. We're talking about 2,000 years of God. So he cut all this stuff out. And I didn't honestly, I didn't think that he'll be this bad about it, right? But the point is saying, so that I understand the argument. The other argument is, well, this can't be really Israel, because if it was really Israel, it wouldn't be the way that it is right now. You wouldn't see war. You wouldn't see these things, because the prophecies say that. But it's just like, this ain't Israel. Like even now, like on even on Pesach, we say next year in Jerusalem. We're in Jerusalem. We're in Jerusalem. So why are we saying we're still in exile? Well, you think Netanyahu and the Knesset controls what happens in this country, what happens in the no, they beg for everything. Everything. You don't think the Arabs have more power in many ways than you know what I'm saying? So yeah, there's a fragment of Jews here. Most of them don't know who they are, right? People's identities are lost. This when they came, ask the people in Dimona, when the Jews from all over the world were showing up, they didn't even have records. They didn't even have, they had no records, no proof, nothing to show that they were Jew, nothing. They just had a belief or they had some type of oral tradition. No different than, say African Americans per se. Hence, hence Ben Ami and them showing up, right? So it's just saying that like it's just saying they don't want to hear that though. Like they want to see the white, they want to see the Jew that's Ashkenaz and white passing and say, but look, he's a lawyer and he's making money. And he lives in this neighborhood. And that's not the Jewish way. That's exile. His job is to be learning Torah. His job is to be keeping mitzvahs, not to have a high top fade and walk around with his non-Jewish wife, living in his neighborhood, being a music executive, putting filth into the world and transgenderism and black on black murdering. That you think you think that's what you think that was Judaism is? You think Bernie Madoff ripping people off and stalking? You think that's a Jew? You think he knows who he is? You know what I'm saying? Like this Jew doesn't walk around with his head covered. I mean, what's going on? So the point is just saying that, but they don't want to hear that because they want to see themselves and say like, oh, well, we're the only ones. Now, the one thing that I do feel is an important step that I am able to inject is the connection between African Americans and the Igbos, right? Because that is it's not a thing now, but it will be a thing more in the future. Why? Because if you're accepting that this is who you come from, and there's actually brothers, Igbos that are right now, that at some point I'm going to get your attention and say, well, what practices are they doing? How do they connect to God? How do they do on the holidays? What calendars are they on? And even if you want to say, oh, well, they're just influenced by the other people, and what was that? They have traditions that go back since the time of the temple, like right now. Why aren't you doing those? So that aspect is a transformational point. And when the Ebos have more of a platform, the ones, especially the ones that I know, when they have more of a platform, everything's just the beginning now, right? We're just like having this conversation. Even you see Captain Tazariak. He's like, yeah, we connected to the Ebos, but they're not even saying the curses as much anymore. That came from my having conversations with. That came from me doing these interviews. So they say, wow, that makes sense. We could actually, but they're looking at it like, oh, well, we can weaponize that to prove to Black people that we are really those people. But in reality, they're arguing against themselves, right? Because they have a doctrine based around prophecy that prophecy is a vague concept. And to be able to say, like, oh, well, I understand what Jeremiah is saying. I understand what Isaiah is saying. I understand what Ezekiel is saying. I understand it. And I could apply. That's silly. And then to try to make the prophecies into a monolith, like, oh, well, this means this by me and nobody else. You know what I'm saying? So I do agree with you. It is that. And it's like a street, like, what's that card game you have? They have like three cards and they move them around, and if you guess it right, it's like this type of a thing, and it's out of pain though. You know what I mean? That's the way I see it. Like I see it like I just see it as hurt people, and people that you know, I mean, America did a job on them. You know what I mean? On us, right? And so it's like you're seeing the response to that. You're seeing a response to being told that you're ugly, that you're nothing. You got big lips and you got nappy hair, and you're stupid. And you're less than a human being. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of years of that message, right? And there's never been any counseling to deal with that. There's never been any therapy to deal with that. It's just like just keep going. Just survive to the next day. So when I see that, I can't look at it and be like, how dare they? Look how wrong they are. Bro, look at the condition. They put drugs in the community, blew everything up. They put crack cocaine. They put the whole thing, heroin, the whole thing in the community. They created black exploitation films. They create whole art forms to reinvigorate trauma. Right? They were beating my ancestors, saying nigga, 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 nigga. Right? That's what they were doing. So, and now it's an art form. Now they're listening to it all day, every day, right? And then you expect these people, these young guys like the guy I interviewed, you expect them to like trust. Who are they supposed to trust? Who are they supposed to trust? The school system they went to was setting them up to go straight to jail. Straight to jail. All the food in all the food eateries, all the food that's available to them was designed to kill them, right? The medicine, the whole thing. So when I see that, it's like it's disappointing because it's like, bro, come on. You know what I'm saying? But I can't look at it and be like, and look at their actions versus the context, right? Because that's what we learn in the Torah, right? That's why we learn the Gemara. That's what we have to learn context, right? We have to learn context. So I can't turn that off and looking at my cousins, my relatives, well, because I'm over here with some other people that look different in a different culture, but I'm gonna be like, oh, well, I'm over here now, so they evil, they whack. I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So that's like you didn't learn anything then. You know what I'm saying? Like there was no humanness in your Torah whatsoever. And that's one of the things I learned from Chief Rabbi Pinchas like years ago when he was here in Israel and I was spending time with him. It was like he has so much love for Africans. You know what I'm saying? Like so much love. And anything you'll say, he wouldn't accept any negative thought about Africans. No, Africans, they have nothing to do with slave trade. Slave trade. Those Arabs. Those. He said those are dark Arabs. Like there's nothing. Africans are pure. This, and I was like, man, like we could learn from that because we've been taught to hate each other. You know what I mean? We've been taught to see the flaws. We've been taught to see like, well, I went to Or Sameach and I converted, and the rabbis love me here, and you know what? You're a Hebrew Israelite, and you don't get it, and you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you how wrong and disgusting you are, and I'm going to do it in front of a bunch of people that are from a different culture, and they're going to say, Mordecai is one of the good ones. He gets it. He gets it. No, that works when you don't have a mom and dad and you weren't raised with that real identity of who you are. Judaism didn't make me who I am. You know what I'm saying? Judaism is the way I express my relationship with God. The Torah is the way I express myself with God. My mom and dad built me. You know what I'm saying? So they created an environment that I believed in myself, that I know I could do anything. They created that because they were living that way. And they got fragments of that from their parents. And on and on and on. So that's the aspect where it's just like, well, you got to have compassion. You know what I'm saying? Not saying it's right. Like I said, it was deceitful, and it's like, and it showed. But at the end of the day, but why is he doing that though? Because he truly believes he's doing the right thing, right? He believes he's guiding his people in the right way. He believes that the influences that I'm exposed to are antithetical to his success and his self-preservation, right? So it's a blend of those two realities, and that's why the Jewish community has not produced great black leaders because they like I said, they support stupid, right? When I say they, I'm not saying intentional. The world, why, how do we know who Kodak Black is? How we know who Gucci Man, all these different guys? These are not examples of greatness from our community. Cardi B, I'm not even saying she's black, Sexy Red, all these different people. They're not expressions of the intelligence of our community. And then look in politics. Like the politicians, the black politicians they have now, they're like they're comical. It's entertainment. And that, you know what I'm saying? So it's just saying, what, Jasmine Crockett? I mean, like, really? That's the bet that she represents an intelligent African American woman. So it's just saying that, the world loves stupidity, right? And especially from our culture, stupidity and off the wallness and over the topness is something that everyone's been trained, even us. We've been trained to see ourselves in that way, right? That's why you got black dudes, they convert to Judaism. These fools up here rapping, dog, and singing. Wait, I thought you wanted to become great. I thought you wanted to transform your nature. Why are you doing stuff you was doing before you was Jewish, bro? Like what's going on? Why are you not traveling meet the Igbos? Why are you not learning? Why are you not with the sages of Israel? Why are you not building there? Why you got to be entertainment? Why do you think that's cool? Why do you think that's cool, L'chaim OG? Why do you think that's cool? You're almost 40 years old, bro. Bro, you know what this kid said to me about L'chaim OG? And I'm just saying out loud. He came to me, bro. He was just like, I asked him, he's a yeshiva guy. He said, yeah, when I was in yeshiva growing up, this is like for him, this guy's 20 years old. So he's talking about like 3, 4 years ago, right? For him growing up as high school. He said, yeah, we used to listen to L'chaim OG. It was like satire. He wasn't saying it to be derogatory. He doesn't even know the guy. But he's saying to them as Jewish kids, hearing this guy rapping and using these Jewish concepts, to him, it was satire. It was comedy. Nassim Black is comedy to them. Now we have such low self-esteem that we're like, hey man, he out there, man, people rocking with him, but that's nobody Jewish is like this. Nobody Sephardic, Ashkenaz, Mizrahi, Yemenite, nobody's doing, yes, do they have entertainers? Do you have Ishai Rebo? Do you have some? Yes, yes, you have all that. But that's like those are like unique guys that are doing, really classical music and not really so much, they're not that popular in the religious communities either. There are some people like Shweki, these different, but it's still like it still is coming from a place of refinement. You know what I'm saying? And it's not. I don't know how Shweki's family. I don't know what they look like. I don't know what Ishai Rebo's families look like. I don't know what was Omer Adam. All these different. These guys. What's his name? Katz. All these. I listen to this stuff. Moti Steinman. I don't know what their families are like. They're not on display, right? And it is entertainment, but it's still coming from a historical point. And they're singing to people who listen to that type of music, and they've been listening to that type of music in for centuries, right? They've been listening to what they call nugunim for centuries. Now he's just doing his rendition with maybe some new technology. Rap is not that. And they're not doing rap for their community. They're doing it rap for people that look at it as funny. When I was at Orchard Mac, people say, well, when is the team going to actually learn Torah? Like, when is he going to get involved in Torah? I mean, we get it. He raps. Nobody respects this stuff. No one does. I'm sorry. Maybe they'll throw you some pennies and they say, like, hey, you know what? Come and perform at my bar mitzvah because, we can't have 50 cents here. Well, number one, he's too expensive. And then two, you know, um, it's not so kosher, even though we listen to him, but we can have you come and it makes us feel like, we're like white, it makes us feel like white collar people, that hire black entertainers to come. They have Nicki Minaj go to, Saudi Arabia and, Dave Chappelle and Cardi B. The Saudis will come and they get a kick out of it. It's funny to them. They're not rocking with them. They're not believing in the message. It's entertainment. And I'm saying, and all that's fine because that's how black people have had to survive in America. You know what I'm saying? That's how we survived, right? We were only given the ability to be entertainment. You know what I'm saying? To be like Kanye, he says it was. I mean, I don't know. He turned up too much. Kanye turned up too much, but it doesn't take away from his message. When he's doing all that Hitler music, why is he doing Hitler music? Is it horrible that he's doing it? Obviously. But his point is, you guys are making money off of black on black violence. And you're marketing and promoting our trauma. That's the message that got lost in the whole thing. Now you just hear like, oh, well, he's just a Nazi. No, he hates Jews. No, black people don't hate Jews like that. You know what I mean? We don't hate Jews like that. I don't believe Kanye hates Jews like that. I think he went too far. I think he got too caught into emotion, and the people that he was going against made him have to double down, right? So they like called him out like, oh no, you a punk, man. We about to punk. He's like, no, I ain't no punk. I ain't no punk. I'm gonna say it even more now. And that's when they got him, right? Because those aren't the religious Jews he's battling against. He's battling against the people who are actually out there making filth. The people that are making the filth in Hollywood are not a part of our community. They'll tell you that. Most of those people don't even support Israel. They're anti-Israel, right? The people promoting this stuff, all this stuff, these people at Warner Brothers, they're not part of our community. That's reality. Nobody in the religious community would be inviting these people over unless they saw there was a sincere way that they were trying to make some tshuva. Or maybe you got Chabad do an outreach, they'll send some guys in the office, try to wrap tefillin or something. But in general, these people aren't a part of our community. We don't know them. We don't know Lear Cohen. You know what I'm saying? We don't know Todd Moskowitz. We don't know these people. They're not with us. they're out there, enjoying, whatever little things that they, whatever little coins they made that the white man let them make some money. Go and be the sharecropper, right? Go and be the sharecropper. Get the niggas, put them together, put them out there, do this music for us because we got a prison industrial complex. That's what we making our money from. We bringing drugs over the border. That's what we making our money from. We don't care about no record sales. We making money. We Smith and Wesson. We Smith and Wesson. We making the money. All of them shooting each other. We making money from that. We don't care about no music industry record sales. You guys can have those crumbs. And we looking at them like they coming up. They not coming up. They're in the slavery too. They killing their brothers. So the point is just saying that, these things that we looking at and we see these things, this is reality, bro. Like this is like, Otino just jumped in, but I'm like, bro, like it's no choice but to become a real rabbi. That's it. That's it. There's nothing else. Whatever it takes, how much learning, how many hours, there's only one destination to be a rabbi. You know who taught this? The Lubavitch Rebbe in Chabad. He said every person in Chabad should get a smicha. He should master a part of Torah and have rabbinical ordinance on that part so that he could at least be the rabbi of his home. That's the destination. So when I see people on the stage shaking their butts and this sweating on stage at a bar mitzvah, Hashem Melech, Hashem, I mean, come on now, bro. How long you gonna sing that song, bro? I've known you for 7 years. You still singing that? No attempts to talk to people from their community. No outreach. Not talking to, not going to no jails, not going to no prisons, not going to no juveniles, not going to no boys and girls club. Nothing to do with that. Why? Because they don't even know who they are. They're just tools. No identity, no sense of self. Whatever the community say, that's what I do. That's what I do. So I'm not on that. You know what I'm saying? I was not raised to be that. I met people like the Rob Berg. That's who I met off top. Off top. He didn't care what nobody said. He built his own situation, printed his own books, his own synagogue. He hated the word synagogue, by the way. He said the word synagogue, sinah, like sinach hinam, right? Hatred for no reason. Synagogue, sinah, hatred. God, house, right? How did it become that? I don't know. I don't know. He called it the war room. He said, you come here to fight your Satan, to beat your Satan, and so you could go out with less of your animal soul having a desire. These are people I met. They went all the way. When I came to even Rabbi Hafuta in Pico Robertson, he's a Moroccan rabbi. He's the one who did my conversion. Hey, he's far gone. He was not holding by the other rabbis in that community. He's not an outreach rabbi. His dad was supposed to be the chief rabbi of Israel. They shut his dad down because they said he was too radical. That's the guy who converted me. He was far gone. And then when I came to Or Shemek, all those rabbis there, they were teaching for death. They're like, I don't know how long I'm gonna live. Almost most of my Rabbanim that I spend the most time with are not here with us anymore. They wanted their last words to be Torah. They did not care about money. They did not care about making money. They wanted their last words to be Torah. I sat at tables. Rabbi Geffen, he's still alive today. He's a big person at Or Shemek. I sat at a table with him and his kids, and he said to his kids, I'm going to leave this world with nothing. You know what I'm saying? So that's that's what I understand. That's what I understand. Now, maybe not everybody got that message at Or Shemek. You know what I'm saying? But all my Rabbanim, Rabbi Rockmill's not here, Rabbi Schiller's not here, Rabbi Zweig, all these people, bro, come on now. They're living for the next world. Everything they're doing is for the next world. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my introduction to Israel. It wasn't parties, it wasn't clubs, it wasn't Israeli girls wearing tight
Hold on, Rabbi. I think you're muted.
Anyways, I'm back. I'm back. I don't know, man. I got spirits on this phone, man. Anytime I start turning up, I think just shut down. But the point is, I'm just saying, like, it's a real thing, and the whole purpose of this whole thing is preparation for the next life. You know, kids, family, mitzvahs, all this, Shabbat, all this is preparation for the world to come. You know what I'm saying? That's the real reality. And coming in to this conversation and not holding by that. It's like, you guys are, bro, you guys should be becoming rabbis. You know what I'm saying? Not this second. Get the basics, get you know what I'm saying? Get in and then build yourself. But that's your destination, and there's nothing other than that. And your kids need to see that. One of the main reasons why I wanted to get Smika was so my kids will have a level, right? My dad was a rabbi. My grandfather was a rabbi. He converted to Judaism. And that, right? Converting to Judaism. That doesn't have anything to do with my lineage from West Africa and the Israelites that were there that came through the translated slave trade. It's a reason why it's in my DNA to want to keep this. But Judaism is something I converted to. You know what I'm saying? Like, Judaism as we know it today wasn't something per se even the Igbos fully understood, or the Ethiopians, or most of the people who were in the continent of Africa, right? They left with just biblical stuff. A lot of those things were refined in Babylon. So, anyways, so it just so those communities that were in Babylon is the one who held closely to the Talmud. But a lot of the people who went in diaspora did not have that, right? So converting to Judaism is a real thing, right? Converting to the mitzvahs and these type of things. Somebody could say, "Well, it's in my DNA," but that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. Yeah, I mean, for sure, it means that you have a chance to excel. It's in your DNA. But what are the mechanisms you have to ignite your DNA? What is the Masura? What is the traditions you have to ignite your DNA? Just belief, some Christianic Hebrew, JC believing in, and there's dynamic, and we create the mitzvot, and we could do this, and Shabbat is whatever we make it. It's on Wednesday and Thursday, and all this type of stuff. And so it's just, like I said, like, it's not for everybody, but for sure it is for you guys. That's why we're here. But my bigger point is just really just talking about, like, why hasn't the Jewish community produced great leaders that have been black? You know what I mean? People, like, I meet these people. I just gotta make these points. I meet people. They've been Jewish, African Americans. They've been Jewish for like 2, 3 generations, right? And they come talking to me like, "Who you think you are?" and this type of thing, and blah blah. But it's just like, you talk about your dad and all these people, but I haven't read no books from your pops or your grandpops. There's no disrespect. I haven't heard any shirim, recording, something, cassette tape, something, literature, something. Why weren't you guys doing that? right? Why wasn't that, a part of the whole conversation, you know? And so, it's just, you see like all these young guys coming in and they see a guy like Nassim. And honestly, a lot of stuff with Nassim is not really like, I was there with him. You know what I'm saying? Like I really know him, right? I don't, we haven't kicked it like in a while, but I'm on my own thing. You know what I'm saying? But the point is just saying like I know him and I could say like sincerely, I don't think he, was fully pursuing fame, but at the same time, financially, that's how, through what he's doing, he's supporting a big family, right? So you got to understand like how much of the pursuance of truth, um, um, how much of the pursuance of truth gets clouded into that dynamic. You know what I'm saying? Like how much does that dynamic? And again, like, but you have other people that come around and you know, how you have people that come around and they see like how much people love him. I love him, you know what I mean? But it's like, he's been through a lot and we've witnessed it, like him, the kids, whole thing. But other people come around and they see that acceptance that he has and they don't understand the whole story and everything that went along with that, and then they want to emulate it and they want to do something like that, and it's just like that's not the path. You missed the whole point. You missed the whole point, right? And it's unfortunate, and you see it, and it's like for me, I look at it, I'm just like, bro, like what are these guys doing, bro? And it keeps growing. Like it's not like it's just like one guy, it's like look, Zakaria, whatever. Zakaria wasn't like per se pursuing rap, but he was hanging out with the scene. But it's just saying that was years ago, right? But it's just saying like, how much time that they put into that versus in the book in the Sugya, right? How much time is it trying to be famous, trying to be popular? And on top of it, we're talking about a very small community. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not talking about like, people pursuing like mainstream fame, or at least you could say, the you're intoxicated with wealth and everything. Like, no, like I mean, it's like, few hundred, Jewish kids, maybe, maybe more, whatever, blah, blah, blah. None of them. I was an executive at Warner Brothers for years. I signed acts. DJ Mustard, YG, Cali Swag, New Boys, Rejects, did TV shows, dance competitions, Sprite, millions of dollars raised. Me, executive produced. Not like I'm a part of it. Not like people do stuff. They're a part. No, I did it. I was executive producer. I raised the money. I created the concepts. I wrote the concept. I'm a creator on these things. Right? Skinny jeans and the mic. I executive produced that. That's platinum. That's not like it was something that was going on and I was working. No, I was with the New Boys with Warner Brothers and we did the deal with Todd Moskowitz. I did that deal, right? We launched the whole skinny jeans, the whole thing. I did that. So it's not like I'm coming from like some nerdy place and I don't get what's going on. No, I did those things. I've done feature films. Not like I was a part of a feature film, right? There's a lot of people, there's all types of producers. No, the project came to me. The script came to me. I went out, raised the money, did the whole thing, negotiate distribution, the whole thing. So I'm not coming from like some place of an outsider. I made hit product in the world, right? So what these guys are doing is not popping. It's not even good music. That's why nobody black is messing with it, right? It's not good music. Montes Yahoo's a Jewish rapper. He talks about Jewish ideas. That was good music. Montes Yahoo, I'm talking about when he was religious, right? He's still a popular guy now, but I'm saying when he was a religious guy, when we found out about him in what, 2007, 8, 6, whatever it is, 4, whatever, a king without a crown, all these albums, we like everyone was rocking with Montes Yahoo, not just the Jewish community, right? Everyone was rocking with it. It was good music, right? It was a reggaeton era. He was kind of like in that space. So it's not saying Jewish music can't be mainstream. Of course it can, right? Even Motzi Steinman, he got to deal with Sony, right? Obviously, his core fan base is the Hasidic Jewish community, but still, that's great music, right? What these guys are producing is not great rap. And the people that are into it, they don't care if it's Nassim, they don't care if it's this guy, they don't care if it's that guy, as long as it's somebody black jumping around. It's secular, and you know what? It's a Yitzhak hara that Jews have. Like anything that's kind of secular, they get sucked into it. So, anyways, I'm not trying to diss anybody, but I'm just telling the truth about not them as people, but the mechanism of our culture as African Americans and how it's playing itself out in Orthodox Judaism. That's all I'm saying. And the conservative reform, forget about it, right? They turn the blind. They none of them know any Torah. Forget about that. They come in and they be like, hey, you're activists to Kun Olam. We're here to repair the world, and you're a blackface, so you stand in front, and we're going to march behind you guys. That's conservative and reform Judaism with African Americans. They have not produced any great thinkers, writers, scholars, nothing, right? Nothing. For every singer in Ashkenaz, Sephardic, Mizrahi, Yemenite, in any subdivision, for every great singer that they have at least 1,000 scholars, at least, right? And they're actively doing things. Look at Chabad; they're involved in politics. It's not one politician where there's a Chabad house that Chabad is not in their pockets, in there doing deals, negotiating the whole thing. They're involved in everything. So what's the issue? What's the issue? So these things are real things. Like we have to address the core condition of who we are, not in a negative sense, like, oh, well, I got to talk down on myself and I got to see all these flaws and other people are better than me. I'm not. That's not. We're not playing that game. What I'm saying is, here's the Torah. You can create whatever reality you want through connection to God, right? Through connection to God, right? Why are you rapping? Why you come to Israel to launch your entertainment career? Why? So, anyways, let's go into the Otina. I know I went in on your boys. I know you love these guys. They inspired you. They made you feel connected. I got it, but I gotta keep it real, baby, because I love you. I love you. I love your future family. So I gotta bring the gauntlet.
I mean,
Go ahead.
okay,
Go ahead.
Shane, it's a this is a huge conversation. And it can go so many different ways. Like for me, one of the things that black people have is real eyes, right? Like you can't BS us at all. That's
Mhm.
one of the gifts that Hashem blessed us with, right? Like you can't pull wool over. You can't like if it's real, it's real. If it's not, it's not. And I don't know which point to jump in on. So like with the Hebrew Israelite conversation,
Yep.
Hebrew Israelites, it's really sincere because I've
Yeah.
from my history I've told you I've been in that community with Zion Legs. He named me Crown Prince, whatever. I've been in that community. I've talked to my Hebrew Israelite brothers. It's a lack of knowledge, and that's really what it is. Most Hebrew Israelites, I'm not gonna say all, but a good proportion of them don't speak the language. They're Sadducees without really knowing what that means. Hebrew Israelites feel like they're holding the highest level of the Torah because it's been distorted. Reason why they feel that way, if you want to just keep it real, is because of racism. When we look at non-Torah, non-observant Torah Jews, they're the ones that people say that's what they're talking about. But when that conversation gets brought up, it's anti-Semitic. Instead of just being real, y'all the ones in our communities. Y'all the record labels. Yes, that's y'all. It's true. It's no. So the Hebrew Israelite community is like, nah, we see that. But no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to bring that up. No one wants to have that conversation. So that's where you get this rhetoric of, y'all ain't the real people. Y'all, what they're really trying to say is when we look at the Torah from the Peshat level, we see where it's holding. When we look out into the world, we don't see that. So y'all can't be the people. But in reality, it's like, okay, that's a real viewpoint. There's some real energy behind that. Rather that conversation is being had or not, who knows? But you got to have that conversation inside. It's almost like if you have a conversation with your spouse or your friends, like, hey, look, outside, I got your back. But inside, I'm gonna tell you the truth. The Hebrew Israelite is not on the inside because they don't have the oral tradition. So it's a 10%. trying to make 10%, 100%, but really you're in the 10. You don't have the rest of the Masora. You don't have the traditions to really build off what you're trying to articulate. So it falls back into racism. It falls back into simple social construct. It's a very simple. It's almost primitive, almost. So it gets laughed at by the broader Jewish community. But in reality, what they're trying to say is like y'all ain't really holding at all. So when I talk to Hebrew Israelites, it gets very real. Like I take a very authoritative position because it's like, look, I'm not gonna play with y'all. I get what you're saying, but what you got a problem with the word Talmud? Why is that? Oh, okay. Read me this verse and do around me. No. Read it to me in Hebrew. Oh, we can't do that. Okay, let me tell you why. Talmud's right there. It's in language. So what you're trying to fall back on is it's a white man's word. No, you just have a lack of knowledge. You don't know. So that's why I have a lot of compassion for my Hebrew brothers, but I don't play with them. So hey, y'all want to go into these deep waters? Let's go, because that's what the Torah is. We're supposed to be on a level of knowledge and application where it's so fluent off our mouth that when you stand next to a Hebrew Israelite, it's like, bro, your knowledge is just not there. So I'm gonna chop you down, but I'm gonna do it with love. Now let's build up. Most of the conversations I have with my Hebrew Israelite brothers, it's very contentious to begin with, and then I completely chop them down with knowledge. And it's like, and Rob, I saw you do it with Zion. Because at first, when you and Zion were kind of talking, Zion had a very, I want to say his aura towards you was just more like, what you trying, what is this rabbi trying to say? And then he realized, like, oh, he has real knowledge. So he started to respect your viewpoint because it's from the Hebrew Israelite community, it's about knowledge. It's about what you, because that's what they do. All day, if you tell the Hebrew Israelite, read this verse to me, they spit it out like it's crazy. It's like, bro, whoa. Because that's how it's supposed to be. They just don't have the traditions. So that's why I have a very compassionate viewpoint towards them. It's just because it's like take the kid who got all the athleticism but ain't got no fundamentals. That's the Hebrew Israelite community. That's what it is. They get the fundamentals, it's a wrap. Done deal. Done deal. Once them fundamentals come in. But why are the fundamentals not coming in? There is no outreach. There is no, oh, those are our brothers. Nah, because it's racism. Just to keep it a book, it's racism. A lot of, I'm not gonna say a lot of, but yeah, you're going and you're black. That's the second part of it that Hebrew Israelites feel. So when they come into the community, when they do come into the community and they convert, there's no, oh, we want to take it back to our people. It's like, no, we just want to integrate into what the Jewish community is. Like, I'm better than where I was. I have more knowledge, so I'm gonna become this, and it creates a vacuum where it's like, you in between. You're not black, you're Jewish. But it's like when you're talking to your black brothers, like, bro, you not black to us. Like, you could be black but not be a part of the culture. You know what I mean? Like, and you find a lot of people, oh yeah, you're black, but you're not culture. Like, if you tell somebody where you're from, they know, oh, based on your neighborhood, I know what your neighborhood, I know what type of person you are because I know how your neighborhood get down. I'm not trying to speak in hood ways. I'm just saying, like, that's how we identify as black people, culture wise. Oh, okay, that's how we know who you are and what you're not. So like even when you go into like the whole rap thing, I feel you. Like on music, a lot of it's like, yeah, whatever. A lot of like myself personally, I hold on to it because you don't hear that. You don't hear articulation in that environment. You don't hear Kedusha at all. When you go listen to rap, it's like, man, it's crazy. Once you start elevating your consciousness, you hear it's like, man, I don't want to hear about pimps and hoes and making money and fly. I want to hear the Mishnah. I want to hear Mishle. I want to hear, you know what I'm saying? I want to hear the Sephira. I want to hear those things. So we hold on to it. If it sound good or don't, it's like whatever. It's at least it's there. I feel like though, it's almost like Yehuda creating a pathway. Like, because for black people, that's how we articulate ourselves. It's through music. It's rap, yeah, okay, but it's really music. It's the Torah. When Hashem spoke the world to existence, he sung it into existence. That's the black essence. That's who we are. When I think about David Hamelech, I don't see him, I see him spitting. I see him flowing, fluent. Like, yeah, like when we go stand on the street corner and guys freestyling, imagine them freestyling, but they speaking Torah. That's David Hamelech speaking praise. So I get where you're coming from, where it's like, why y'all want to be rappers? But it's like that's the path. You know what I mean? Not the path in the sense like that's the only way you can do it, but that's our essence. That's who we are. When we speak, just normally speaking, we start flowing. Our words start connecting. That's just who we are. We got that. We got soul. We got essence. That's just us. So I feel like when you get, and this might tie into a point I want to go into, when you get, I'm not saying L'chaim and Nisim aren't real. I'm not saying that. I don't know them. You know, I've had conversations with L'chaim, never spoke to Nisim. You know, I know they both did music before they became Jewish, you know, before they converted. But like when you get real ones that start speaking, it's gonna be a problem. When you get real ones like me and the elder, because Rob, to be 100% with you, I'm a black nationalist. That's how I grew up. I was raised on Black Panthers. I was raised on seeing the conditions of black people. That's why my whole thing is, yeah, I do want to get Samika, but I want to get it so I can bring it back to my community, not to isolate, but I'm not very keen on integration either. I want to build us up because I do see that the Torah is not being held on a certain standard. Now, that's not for all, you know, jewelry, because that's not true. There's Hasidus who are on a whole different level. We read the Ram Call, we read even Rabbi Nachman, the Breslov, like whole different level. And there's hidden Zadikim right now that are holding the world up right now. Rather they're white, Asian, doesn't matter. But when you see people like us come into the community who want to have Samika, that want to be the rabbis, and they want to teach on that level, I think you're gonna start seeing some real issues, like what the Hebrew Israelites are speaking of, and they're but they can't really articulate it fully because they're not inside. They're not inside the traditions. They see the racism, but it's really not racism. It's really levels of Torah. Are you holding on the highest level or are you not? So I think when we come in and we're speaking that, when we're speaking on the highest levels of Mishnah, Midrash, and the Zohar, Kabbalistic, all those different levels, I think you'll have a huge pushback on people that look like us. But that's the point. That's the whole purpose. Because you have to elevate Kalal Yisrael. It has to be an elevation, a complete elevation. That's why anti-Semitism is in the world. Israel ain't holding at the level they need to. You gotta be a light to the nations, period. It's not all this, oh no, we're victims again. No, hold to the highest level. Forget all that. We the strong. If you're a Jew, you're the epitome of creation. So everything, when you view it, it's happening because of your relationship with Hashem. Hashem don't have the same relationship with everybody else. So it's going to be different sets of trials and tribulations that you're going to go through. You have to look inside. It's not, oh, look at what they did to us. Look at what's going on here. No, it's us. What are we doing? Why are we not holding at the level? It's too much. Oh, well, you know, it don't seem real. And that's why you have Hebrew Israelites with the position that they're in. And you have black people looking at, I'm just keeping it just all the way as real as I can. I'm not trying to be divisive, but you have black people that look at the Jewish community. It's like, bro, it's just not real. Like we see it. You can't fool us. So let's elevate to that level. And I think that's where the conversation has to start going to. Those conversations where, and I think it's going to come from converts, quote unquote. If you want to say you're Hebrew Israelite, you're the bloodline, okay, fine. I love having a conversation with my brother because I break it all the way down. Like, yeah, okay, I feel you. Let's go through it. What's your issues with this? Let's break it all the way down. And once that gets broken down, it's like, all right, now let's utilize that Hashem's in control of everything. We're black. We have the most influence in the whole entire world. We influence everybody. Jewish, non-Jewish, Arab, whatever. We influence everybody. Imagine when we start speaking Kedusha. We're gonna influence the world on that level. And so I think it's gonna come from the convert to come into the and coming to Israel, come to Kalal Israel, and like, hey, bro, y'all look around, y'all see what's going on. We gotta elevate, and I think there's gonna be internal strife within that because that head is gonna show itself. That's just my opinion. So I think it's a lot of different dynamics, but I think at the end of the day, it's just gotta be real. I think for a black person to go to jewelry, you got to know who you are. You got to know that you're black. You know what I'm saying? Like, not, oh, I'm identified as black. No, this is what Hashem put me out into the world to be. How do I utilize that? If you're white, how do I utilize being white? Because we're souls at the end of the day. But I think a lot of times we try to jump past so much. We just try to jump past it all. And for like the black Hebrew Israelite community, it's not going to work. It's just not going to happen. It got to be straight. Some of these questions got to be like identified and talked about. And it's like, yeah, we see it too. That's real. But on this end, man, y'all scholarship is horrible. And I tell my brothers that it's horrible, bro. You don't know nothing. And it's not on the end of like, I know something you don't know. It's like, hey, let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's get down to it. Let's build up this knowledge. And then you'll see the ones that really aren't trying to be controlling, the ones who are being deceitful. Like the interview that you had, yeah, it wasn't an interview. He was trying to, hey, look, y'all, this rabbi's in black, he's a convert, he's not one of us. I want y'all to see this. I'm hitting with the questions. Rob, you could have chopped him down easy, but because of your humility, you're trying to have a open conversation, a building conversation. When you have a conversation with most Hebrew Israelites, it's not to build. They're not there to build. They're there to show like, hey, he's not, he's token. He ain't one of us. He's almost on some. He's a house. You know what I'm saying? Instead of a field. That is like, bro, that's not it at all. So you have to just take a very authoritative stance and let them know it, whether it's on camera or not, and just go to the knowledge base because that's where it's lacking. They're gonna try to hit you with all the curses and all this different stuff. It's like you can't even decipher the Torah without the oral Torah. You can't. It wasn't designed that way. That's all they're holding on is on the written. That's it. They don't Mishnah, Talmud, none of that. I was Baruch Hashem, where I came in through Zion. Zion was in all of the traditions. So I didn't get just a straight Tanakh. I was from Midrash from jump, Talmud from jump. Because Zion was an outlier in his community. They didn't believe in that. Like, whoa, he was like one of the first ones who was like, nah, we gotta get into the oral tradition. It's hard. They were like, what do you mean? That's the white man. And that has to get broken down. So not trying to get too long-winded, but I think just at the end of the day, it's just a matter of realness that has to come back to the world in general. But until that happens, it's gonna be a lot of division. Baruch Hashem.
No, go ahead, go ahead. So a couple points on that. So you said it. Number one, I'm on tonight with Zion Lex, by the way. We talked. I guess there was some type of disconnection between us. I don't know what the issue was. I still don't know. But he sent me a message. He was apologizing. Hey man, I'm sorry. I was like, bro, ain't no issue between us. We're family. This whatever. So I'm on with him tonight, and I will be turning up. I will be turning up tonight. I will be addressing the whole issue with this interview I did with Deacon, also Captain Tazariak. I'm turning up on everybody in that way, so it should be entertaining, or at least juicy, right? Because that gets people going. But well, a couple of things. So the thing is, in terms of like say Black nationalism, right? Black Panthers. These were things that all of our parents were influenced by to some degree, in that generation, and we inherited some of that things. Now, the issue is that why hasn't it worked, right? Like, why is it you had the Black Panthers, you had, Nation of Islam, you had First AME Church, you had all these different movements that were centered around Black people in our struggle, but after those core leaders went away, the situations got worse, right? And it's not to take away from Marcus Garvey and all different types of people who were visionaries, Malcolm X, all these different people. But the reality is that they were communicating the white man's language, right? The concept of being Black, the concept of being white, the concept of being Asian, the concept of being American, the concept of being upper class, middle class, the concept of being educated, that was all created by a European power structure concept, right? That we could trace all the way back to Greece. And you can see that our ancestors were fighting, they were the Maccabees, right? And they were fighting against them, the Greeks, and they were fighting against Hellenized Jews, right? Who were like basically the liberals today, right? The ones who are anti-Israel and this whole type of thing. So my argument is like this. I also have an affinity for the African American experience. That's where I come from, right? But then I also have to hold two things, right? Because the concept of racism, right? I mean, we talked about this a lot. As much as we could say that racism is the reason why this, the racism is the reason why that, and on a certain level in the world of Malchut, it's 100%, right? Because they literally are saying it. They literally built institutions. They're literally saying, "Don't come here if you're colored. Don't come here if you're whatever," right? So no niggers allowed, right? I mean I mean my mom's from Mississippi. She grew up seeing that. She grew up seeing colored water fountains, right? Like she grew up in that. So It's just to say that, so it's not to say that that concept doesn't exist, but Asaph is a trickster, right? Asaph is a manipulator, right? That's why they said the Jews who lived in Europe had it much worse than the Jews that lived in the Middle East. You know, Ishmael was harsh on them, but not like Asaph. Asaph tried to uproot the Judaism from them. Ishmael was saying, no, well, we're just above you and you're subjugated, right? They used to give a tax to the Jews, a Jesuit, I think they called it, in the Middle East. They gave them taxes. In Europe, they were trying to make them Christian. They were trying to morph them, deform them, all types of things, right? So the thing is like when we say my people could only truly be understood from an Israel perspective from the neshama. That's the reality. As much as I want to go in front of a group of people, why are you guys here? Because I'm persuasive? Because I did some advertisement? No, you heard something, you connected to some vibration. You said, hey, I could build with this guy. I could learn with this guy. He has information that I can benefit from. And so you sought me out. You've given money. You've given hard-earned money. You've done that. That's not from persuasion. That's from your neshama, right? And so the people that are going to connect, and that's another thing too. You know, Rabbi Nachman, he says, like, how do people find, find the Judaism? How do even converts? How do they find Judaism? He said, what happens is the way he describes it in Likutei Moharan is that a righteous person speaks words of Torah, and those words of Torah get connected to a wind curtain, a wind current, and the wind envelops those words of the Sadiq, and those words travel, and then they hit the ear of the person who has that holy soul, and it awakens them. It could be across the world, right? But there's someone who was teaching that aroused. For me, it was the Rav Berg, right? But the point is just saying that in blessed memory. But the point is just saying that this is a neshama game, right? And as much as I want to be like, oh, well, I want to go to my people. No, I want to go and present ideas to African Americans, but only some of them are going to have those souls. Same thing by a group of Hispanics. Same thing by a group of rural white people, in the South, in the Midwest. The same thing by Asians, right? There's Zera Israel, right? The seed of Jacob that's all over the world. And so that's why I give classes in India and Nigeria and to African Americans in America, right? Along with Israelis and Ashkenaz, Sephardic, and Mizrahi here in Israel. Because the people who connect to me aren't connecting necessarily to the other rabbis, right? And I'm not dissing other rabbis. I'm just saying they connect to me because it's a neshama connection. So the people that you're going to connect to, the people that you're going to inspire throughout your life, it's going to be certain souls. It could be a few Asian guys. Be like, hey, Ochino, can we learn with you? Can we build with you? Can we learn, some of the stuff? I heard you give a class, or I read your, something on your social media, whatever. And that's what it is. And that's part of the control that they have. They'd be like, oh, well, you're black, so you should write about black issues. Why? Why are you telling me that? Because you're black. Black people do things. There's a black market. You're black. You should be in the black market, right? And so that's part of Asaph. Asaph is trying to convince me of something. And then when it comes to racism, me and you both know that God determines my reality. That's why there's such a focus on us having bad midot, right? Because when our people did have good midot, right, doing my grandparents and great grandparents, specifically their generation, when they were good people, they were God fearing people, they went to church, even though it wasn't the correct spiritual system, they still had community, they still had respect for elders, they were dressing modestly. They were eating healthy to some degree, you know what I mean, under the conditions that they were dealing with, and they created the civil rights movement, which changed the whole world, right? The whole world is still vibrating from those black families that were giving their money to those protesters, right? To assemblies, to different things that were supporting these causes. So that changed the world, not the blackness, the midot, right? And then later they brought black exploitation films and all these things to remove the midot from the people. Wait, they were property owners. They were family builders. A black man was building a family. And specifically in my great grandfather's generation, all of our great grandparents' generations, even though they were subjugated, even though they weren't allowed to buy property in quote unquote white neighborhoods. Arguably, that was the downfall because that's when our midot changed. When we tried to, when we were in many ways forced to assimilate economically into outside of our shtetl, right? When we were in our black, quote unquote, black Negro shtetl, when we had black barbershops, black hotels, black restaurants, black, dineries, black manufacturing plants, and this whole thing, and we just served each other. We created millionaires, we created families, and the dude down the street was a judge, and a guy down the street was a gardener. They lived in the same neighborhood, and you saw both of those. Right now, a black person makes money now because of the drugs, because of gangs and all these type of things. They're moving to the valley. They're moving out like my parents did. People didn't get to see my parents. People who invested into therapy, working on themselves, creating internal ideologies, experimenting with spirituality. Yeah, they were affected by black nationalism too. Like all black people were in the 80s and late 70s. But you know what? They got into Sufism. They got into mysticism. They got into therapy. They got into working on your issues and that type of thing. But they never saw that. There's a guy who went to school with me. His name is Damian Williams. He grew up with me, whatever. Real, we played football together, Pop Warner football, the whole thing. And we got in so much trouble in junior high that our parents didn't let us go to the same high school. So he went to Taft High School, which is in Woodland Hills, and I went to El Camino, which is like the West Hills, right? He, in the ninth grade, got this girl pregnant. She was a senior in high school. He didn't know nothing about sex, nothing like that. That was like the first girl he ever really, went to that level with, right? But she got pregnant. You know what I mean? And the issue really was on his mom who let the girl sleep over. What do you think was going to happen, right? That's what my dad said. Anyways, years later, after he got this girl pregnant and then she got pregnant again, he was talking to my dad, and my dad was just like, bro, we ain't gonna marry this girl, bro. What you doing? So he married her. They had more kids. He ended up going to the army. He became a decorated soldier, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He went and he went to the Iraq War, Afghanistan, all these places, right? Purple Heart Soldier, whatever, right? And I remember years later when he came back from the war, he had a lot of PTSD, all these types of things, and he was wilding out, right? And so, anyways, to save his marriage, he told me this. He's like, I didn't know what to do. He didn't have a dad. He never knew his dad. He's biracial. His dad was an African American guy. I think he OD'd when he was a kid, and his mom was like an Italian lady, right? Who kind of like thought she was black, right? And 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 so anyway, so he came to me years later, and he said to me, he was like, yeah, he said the only family I ever saw was your family, right? I mean, I got four siblings, there's five of us. He said the only family I really saw that was together, that was healthy and example. And I didn't even look at us that way, right? I'm looking at us like we just regular people. But for him, he was able to see the things that my parents did because he used to come to me. My parents were so into therapy. I'd be like, hey, bro, I got to go to this therapy session, whatever, blah, blah. And I would just take him with me, not to the therapy. He would just sit in the lobby. You know what I mean? I'd be like, I got to go in there for an hour and we'll and we'll start rolling again. You know what I mean? Because we'll be just hanging out, driving different places. And he would just be, he was like my road dog, right? And he came back to me years later and he was like, yeah, like when me and my wife was having problems, like we went to therapy, and we worked on that, and a lot of my stuff came out and her stuff came out, and we were able to save our marriage. And I think maybe they had another kid or whatever. He got like five kids now, right? I mean, I'm way behind, right? So the point is just saying that, but in our community, those people who made those evolvements, that was normal in our grandparents and great grandparents generation, right? So what separates our dynamic wasn't racism didn't stop us. We were better off doing racism. When we were in our own communities, you had our own teachers, right? People who actually cared about the kids because those were like basically their kids, right? You didn't have some teacher that was paid from a different community and didn't even know how to culturally deal with it. You got a black boy, he like 6'3", he in the seventh grade. You know what I'm saying? They don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to talk to him. So they put him in detention. They pick him out. You know what I mean? And so it becomes an institution to like farm them out. But doing my grandparents and great grandparents, they didn't play that in the neighborhood, right? So it's just saying that it wasn't ever racism. That's what white people want to convince us of. that their racism and they have so much power that stopped. It's nothing to do. It's our midot. Now we could say, well, what happened? Why weren't we able to retain it? Because you're right, we didn't have a Masurah. Our midot, in essence, were copying white Christians, right? The white Christians that were productive and successful, those are the ones we modeled our churches after, right? They had their Protestant, we had our Baptists. They didn't even want to pray with us, right? That's where the Baptist church comes out of that. So that was where that came from. So going forward, to help any group of people, number one, only certain Neshamot are going to want to connect to what you're saying, right? Now, where those people come from, I don't know, right? Maybe there are people that you know, maybe there are people you're not. You got to ask yourself, why are you here and they are not, right? I mean, I've been on Zion Lex a lot, right? I've communicated to a lot of people. Why are some people connect to me and why people don't? It's a neshama thing, right? So when we talk about making changes, we have to remove all that Egypt out of our logic. We have to see the world that the Ram call is played to us, where everything is the 99%. The 1% is just, hey, you can marry women on the 1% and you will have 99% of problems, right? Damn, she was bad though. She was bad. She looked good. Look at her nails. Now the 1% is so bad, they got inflated everything. It's not, it's not even real. It's plastic all over the place. But the 1%, it still look good on the 1%. But the woman who needs that 99% is not, it's not good. So, so it's just saying, so I agree with you that there is a responsibility to help and to open the doors of Torah to everybody, right? Everybody open the door. But out of that, there's only going to be a few people that step forward, right? The mixed multitudes who joined, I'm Israel, right? This we're in that parsha right now, parsha Bo, right? That parsha Bo, this is all about the Exodus, right? But the tradition says not all the Jews left, and then the mixed multitudes joined in. You think Moshe thought of that? Like, hey man, there's going to be a bunch of non-Jews that leave with us too, and they're going to join the nation, and we're going to form a nation on Mount Sinai, and they're going to be foundational people of it. So, anyways, so it's just so all of us are right, right? We're all right. We're all saying true things, and what you're saying about the Jewish community is true because the religious community is so insular and it's so like separate because of the abuse that they have dealt with by non-Jews. It's not like the Jews are like when you see a Hasidic Jews and they dress a certain way and they don't want to talk to nobody and they're in their own clique. That's coming from hundreds of years of abuse from Christian culture, right? When you see people from the Middle East and they're like, hey, we got our own little Persian thing. I was in the Persian community in LA, like big time. But when they're insular, that's because that's a culture of being abused as a minority from the Muslims and all the others, Zoroastrian and Kurdish and Druze and all these other people who have power over the Jews at different parts in history that abuse them. So they're in America, they're like, we're not messing with none of y'all. We got our own culture. We want to marry within our own self. You guys are wild. And then you have African American dynamic where it was like, you know, a lot of African Americans are descendants of Israelites. That is a real thing. However, it's like it's not like so simple, right? Because we're not talking about, you know, the people 2, 3, 4 generations off the plantation. We're talking about hundreds of years and all types of intermixing and ideas and all types of things. And then they're coming in like, hey, we Jews too. And they're like, well, how? Oh, well, look at the curses. Or look at these things. And again, I don't even know what Rabbi Matthews was teaching. Maybe they took his teachings and got rid of them. Maybe he had books and literally. I would imagine if they created 22 synagogues, they had to have some type of system of ordination, some system of functioning, right? He gave speeches every Shabbos. Did they keep kosher? How so? Pesach, how did they do it? So you could argue that maybe his stuff was systematically removed. Just like what's his name? Alex Haley removed parts of Malcolm X's book when it talked about economic empowerment in inner city. He was a Fed. He was a CIA operative, Alex Haley. And he's the one editing his book, right? So it's just to say that like we don't know. I'm like I think one of the biggest mysteries what was Rabbi Matthews teaching. He had 22 synagogues across America. He had to train rabbis. They had to be able to know how to perform Shabbat services and holidays. Why is there no written record of it? Why can't you find anything? You can find some historical stuff from him, Rabbi Levi, and other Rabbi Matthews, and a few other guys you may hear about. One of the guys moved back to Ethiopia, this type of thing. But what did they teach? What did they know? What were they doing? What were they learning? Were they learning Rashi? Did they have other commentaries? Were they learning Talmud? What were they doing? Were they teaching Kabbalah? I don't know. Right? When I talked to Casper Fournier, it's vague by him too. Like a lot of what they do when they train their rabbis, I know a couple guys who got smicha by Rabbi Fournier. They're learning Mishnah Torah. They're not learning Rabbi Matthew's teachings, even though the Hebrew Israelite Board of Rabbis has been around for over 100 years. And it's not connected to Rabbi Matthews. It's not the commandment keepers. This is a separate thing. I think they celebrated a year ago or whatever, 106-year long anniversary. But what is he teaching? What do they know? Right? He's conservative. So are they holding by conservative rabbinic? You know what I mean? It's not clear. So a lot of these things are important to do it. But the black concept is like, number one, the white man called us black. So I can't use that perspective as a basis to build an identity or a community, because that's doing it in his image, in his idea, and he's coming from Asaph. He's an uncircumcised man that went around killing and murdering people. I cannot take his intellect into my thinking and say I'm gonna build off of that, even though I wrote the book Mind of the Black Jew. Right? You have to build a dynamic off of communities. Even a lot of the other stuff, African, this type of stuff, it's like, yeah, that's cool, and we could use these words and this and Bantu and all these type of things. I mean, and that's cool, but at the end of the day, when I look at the movements that have been existed in Judaism, I'm talking about post Holocaust type movements, and even before then, like Chabad, Breslov, all these things. The whole focus is in the neshama. Chabad's whole thing, the Tanya is based off of the neshama, understanding the Benoni, right? The teachings of the Breslov is all based around the neshama and the effects of the world around it. Those movements are the ones that are growing. Now you could build an ethnic identity out of that because there's Chabad songs, there's Chabad food, there's certain things, but those are because they took the things that were in Europe and they just applied it to the thinking of the Alter Rebbe. But the Alter Rebbe created mechanisms based around the soul, and then from there he wrote commentary, he wrote halacha, not created halacha, explained the halacha from this perspective. The same Shulchan Aruch, the same Mishnah, the same Zohar, but he explained it from the frame of their perspective, of their understanding, and how he wanted to teach this new understanding of the self through the neshama. So when I see that, I can't go and say, but they're not even doing it that way. But if you look at it on the outside level and you see Chabad, you say like, oh well, it's white people from Russia and the Ukraines, and they eat gefilte fish and they love baka, and they sing with this thing, and the melodies that they use come from, many of them even from churches, from those environments, and Napoleon and all these different things. So you could look at it on an external level, just like I could look at a black person from an external level or black culture and say that. And then it's like, if I'm trying to understand the black experience, I got to understand the black experience from souls, because what African Americans, Black people, Negroes in America experienced, only certain souls could even survive in that. So I'm more pressed to question, like, well, what were these souls that needed to come in? If I'm learning Exodus right now, and the sages thousands of years ago are teaching that no, the Exodus in Egypt, or the slavery in Egypt, wasn't because the Jews were being punished, but rather it was a cleanse. They were being cleansed of sins that go all the way back, or klipas that go all the way back to Adam Rishon. They were being cleansed. Why? Because they had to receive the Torah for all of humanity. Right? That's why they went through it, not because of that. So if I'm gonna take that same perspective, that same shita, I'm like, well, look at these other people that are saved. Say I'm Asian, right? And I look at the African American experience, we're like, damn, why did God put those people through that? Why did they have to go through that? What was the purpose of that? Well, if there's no Torah, I mean, hey, slavery happened in this part of the world, happened in this part of the world, happened in that part of the world, it happened over here too. Okay, fine, that's one perspective. But The Torah perspective is like, no, these are particular souls that were brought in. Perhaps this is my own personal chiddush. Many of the African Americans that came from the west of Africa, when I talked to the Igbos, right, Rabbi Kish and these different guys, you know what he said to me? He said that many of the Jews that he said there was different segments. He said when Moses, this is their tradition in Igbo land. He said when Moses left Israel, the mission, the midrashim say that there were many Jews that stayed inside of Egypt. They never left with Moses. He said their tradition is that many of those Jews went into Africa after that. They didn't stay in Egypt when the Jews left. They migrated the opposite way. They didn't leave with Moses. They migrated over in Africa. He said to the point that when the first and second temple fell, the Jews in Israel knew that they had brothers and people from their tradition that were already living in Egypt for 1,000 years, hundreds of years prior to that, right? Because they already had relationship. He said the people who stayed inside of Egypt went into Africa, and they were the ones who taught the Africans how to do open heart surgeries, how to create weapons, how to do all these things that these technology. This is their tradition. I can't quantify it. I'm just saying what their tradition in West Africa is that they've had for a long time. And he said, and not only that, he said when the temples fell, he said the Jews went into deep into Africa because they knew that they had brethren that were already there and they would be safe there, right? That's why they went in there to begin with. So arguably, you could say maybe part of that tikkun was that many of the people that we call African American and Black Jews that came from the west of Africa, many of them were maybe descendants or the souls of people that didn't leave with Moses. I don't know. Okay, I'm not trying to say I'm Rabbi Nachman, right? And I could tell you, or the Ari, right? The Ari says, the people who were in the generation of Noah's flood were reincarnated in the times of Israel or Babylon. I mean, or the Tower of Babel, and the people from Tower of Babel reincarnated. All these types of things, right? So that's how people see things, right? But I can't get into that conversation of understanding the condition of these people and where they came from if it wasn't for if it wasn't if I don't use the tools of the tradition, which is things like reincarnation, things of different historical perspective of what happened to the Jews that were in Egypt that didn't leave. Did they stay in Egypt? Okay, the Igbos say no. Can I quantify it? No, I don't have a tradition that says that, right? Maybe there is, I don't know, right? A lot of people's books were burnt, right? Maybe some of these books by the Ramchal, a lot of his books were burnt. He went too far in some of his writings. What exactly did he say? I don't know. Baal Shem Tov, a lot of these people, they wrote things. Why did the Jewish community want to burn their books? I don't know. So it's just it's a lot of things, but these are the things that as we become more pure, God will give us divine inspiration to have more clarity on these things. But we have to strive for that. But part of that is leaving the systems of thought behind that in many ways hampered the progression of our people going forward, right? And a lot of that is this concept of blackness. It's like and whiteness, right? And Asianness and Americanness and Israelness and all these other things. I'm saying in a context of in the context of in the context of these things. So, anyways, I know Ochina dropped off. Maybe he'll come back. I don't know. Maybe he's in the office. But let's just try to get a little bit of Torah in. I know this was like a different comment, but we got to have these conversations. You know what I mean? Because if we don't have these conversations, it's just it's Bible study. You know what I mean? Like we have to be working on ourselves. We have to be changing our perspective about life. We have to be in elevating our consciousness, and then from there, we'll just learn a little bit, and hold on. Oh, great. Okay, hold on, let me try to figure this out. I guess it's updated itself, so it's like a little bit different now. Hold on. Um, some docs, some whiteboard, photos, image files, shared documents. It's so annoying when they like switch these things around. Hold on. So let me see what this is. No, not it. Hold on. Okay, so that's how you do that. That's not what I'm looking for. But I'm trying to figure out how to get the screen up. What happened? Yeah, it's like, you know how they like update the app and then like now the features are different. That's what I'm dealing with. So they have app here. Okay, apps. Okay, virtual background, music. The app will only appear on your Zoom device if they've been installed on your Zoom desktop application. Oh my God. All right. So I don't know. I don't know. We kind of maybe well we would have the same issue if we would have did it earlier. But I don't know. Elder, you got any words on what we're talking about? Just as a perspective, because I have to figure out how to download these apps. It's not gonna happen right now.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. I think that um both dialogues are both, especially what Agostinel was saying, and I agree also with what you were saying as well. I think that the common denominator is that from the aspect of like being a Hebrew Israelite, okay, that's kind of where we're kind of platforming from. Um, Understanding that within the black community, let's say you're not even a Hebrew Israelite, okay? Hebrew Israelites, we had this mindset that we were raised with, and I believe that it comes from more than just the Christian church. I think it comes from just because there were so many traumatic experiences within our communities. Communities had to learn how to stick together, right? So the idea is that from that aspect, um, you had neighborhoods where, as like I'm gonna give you just an example, small example, within the black communities, someone would pass away in the black community, right? In that community, you could have had Catholics, Baptists, Methodists. You could have had, I mean, you could have had Muslims, but growing up, I never knew a Muslim, but it didn't exist in our neighborhood, especially in the South. But someone passed away within the neighborhood, no matter what, there was so they didn't have insurance. Okay, everybody in the neighborhood chipped in and helped pay for that funeral. I seen it with my arms. They used to have a can that would pass around, and so so now from that aspect there, when I come into Judaism, I see tzedakah. I see cans everywhere now, right? And so from that aspect, this is a method of how we tend to reach back because the first idea is that we used to have a concept of community, okay? And then from that concept of community to we were always taught as children that if you leave the community, don't abandon the community. To abandon the community was a shameful thing. So within us, that's embedded within us, is this idea that and I think you touched on this a couple of months ago, a couple of weeks ago, that for African Americans that embrace Judaism, they get this idea that they have to abandon their community. But within us, that becomes a conflict because we want to continue to reach back to our community and say, listen, hey, there's a fountain here. You know, I want you to drink from this well. I want you to see what I see. I want you to experience what I'm experiencing. And then you begin to understand, hey, you know, listen, hey, we're talking about dealing with our families. We're talking about having stronger families, stronger households, a better economy. And we're like, look, this is what we're missing right here. This is it. And we're trying to reach back to communicate that idea. Now, there's because of that, what I would tend to do is just look at that can that was passed around in our community and say, listen, hey, this is stuff that we're already doing, but you don't have the knowledge and the power behind it. You don't know that our ancestors did it. You don't know that there are Jews all over the world that's doing this, that's helping each other, that's doing these particular type of things, you know. Uh, uh, um, and so we're finding those bridges to reach back. And I believe that only scholars can actually do that. Those that are scholarly and also not scholarly in a weird way, but scholarly with compassion and connection, to where you can look back and say, listen, hey, look, I know where you're coming from. I understand how you think, but I want to tell you, show you that there's a knowledge that you don't know. And because I can say this here, because of Christianity, if you read through the New Testament, I'm just gonna say it like this here. The new There is no place that I've seen in the New Testament that speaks favorably about Jews. Nowhere. It's everything is being spoken favorably about Greeks, and that's a fact. Okay, and so the idea is that from that standpoint, we have to now get to a place where we understand that there is a level of resentment based upon what we were taught, and it's especially here in the South, you're gonna find hard pressed for African American here in the South that has ever even seen or met a Jew. They probably met one but didn't know that they were, because they probably met one that's not very religious. So the idea is that there's always this concept. So going back, my question would be to the brother that did that interview. It's like, I believe that he has to have a season. I believe that anybody that sets themselves to be a moray, a teacher, a rabbi within any community, they should take the time to be well versed and to actually learn. Sit out for years and just learn and get the full picture. Because if not, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you are leading through propaganda, and you're leading through these, either you're leading blindly or you're leading intentionally, where there's a bigger entity that's motivating. Okay, but the idea is that I believe that what Otina was talking about was the aspects of finding those bridges and having that strong desire to reach back into our communities and say, listen, hey, because this is how I practice, I didn't stop being your son. I didn't stop being your daughter. I didn't stop being your cousin. You know, I didn't stop. Hey man, when I go back through to the hood, guess what? Those same streets I can bring toward to those streets. I can bring toward to those streets. It may not be like I'm on a soapbox and anything, but in my conversations and when questions arise and there's problems within our family, we can bring forth Torah and bring it forth to what we're learning, and that can create that bridge. And I think that one of the reasons that a lot of the groups like the Black Panther Party and all these other Black nationalist groups, why what happened? Why didn't they work? Or what happened? I believe that many of them were dissembled by this government, but I also believe that it was too loud. It was too loud. It was That was like social media back then. It's too loud. I believe that true I don't like using the word revolution, but I believe that the true essence of development and tikkun olam of repairing the world is a very intimate thing. I believe that it's done house by house by house by house. If every man knew what the Shabbat table meant and the power of it, I believe that changes lives. And so that's done intimate, and it's not done on a grand scale. I mean, in some cases, but not on the norm. On every day, every week, there's a rabbi sitting at a table with his family, and he's going through like, what does the salt mean? Like, why don't we talk about that? Like, what does the salt mean? Why are you dipping three times? Why are you, what does the holler represent? What is it? And so these things would benefit the communities if they so desired. And so I think that that's where it's at right there. And I believe that that's where the true power is going to come with the scholars. So that.
Yeah, no, I think both of you guys are right on that. I think Otino's point is on it, and I'll just say one point, Otino, and I know you know this, but I'm just gonna say it. We never judge the Torah based off of the Jews. You know what I'm saying? Like the Jews will tell you that, everyone will tell you that. It's a rough cap. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of people with massive levels of desire to receive, and if it's not funneled the right way, it's not that right. And in terms of people seeing, like again, like I said earlier, I think you dropped out, but the religious community is where you're going to see the best of Am Israel, right? The people keep the Torah. So if all you see is so Woody Allen and Howard Stern and whoever, wherever these guys, the people, Friends, whatever these different shows, and other people that are celebrities, and you're like, well, why aren't you doing that? Or you have some guy who's a landlord, a slumlord, or whatever, or people doing credit businesses, and that's your interaction. I agree, and I think the Jewish community agrees with that too, but it's still like it's like I said, it's a midot thing, right? When you talk about the curses and how we're going to be in diaspora and not knowing who we are and acting like the goyim and that type of thing, is if we could look at the black community and like the Hebrew Israelites do and say, oh well, look at the curses. Well, look at our Ashkenaz brothers too. Look at some of our Sephardi brothers. You know what I mean? Like the people don't know who they are. The people they want to assimilate. They want to go ahead.
You, and I also think that for the Hebrew Israelite community, I think understanding the whole concept of Baal Tshuva would be beneficial. That they would understand that, like, if you do have a Howard Stern, right, that says, hey, you know what, man, I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to learn Torah. I want to become more religious. That he has to go through a process too. It's a process. It's not like it's not a process.
Exactly. So whatever, but Ochino's point is still seeing that we're coming out of like, hey, we all we've had is the Bible, right? That's the only thing that's gave us hope. And then now we come into society and you say, yeah, we're Jews, and then you're acting, just as bad, if not worse, than the white man that was doing this, and I've even heard like even like black nationalists, like not black nationalists, like black, like like Muslims, like some of the women, they say, well, the Jewish communities never tried to teach our kids anything. You know what I'm saying? So now we say, well, are we required to do that? Are we required to see people or in pain or whatever? But again, a lot of the Jewish experience has been doing the dirty work for the white man, right? Let's keep it real. That's been that the secular Jew is in a position that he is a slave to the white man and what he's doing and working at, even if it means selling out his fellow Jew. We saw that with the Greek times, with the Hellenized Jews. You saw it in Europe, right? With the capos and all these other types of people. So that mentality in North America, it didn't go away. Right now, there's been, like you said, Jews who became Baal Tshuva, who say, "Hey, I'm leaving that way of life and I'm going back to my heritage." You're not going to see that guy. because he's focused on whatever business he got, and he's going home to his family. You see him on you. The only time you're going to see him is on Shabbat pushing a stroller with his family, right? But everyone else, you see these guys, blah, blah, blah. Like people think like, oh, you're getting into Judaism because you're in Hollywood. When I was first like on my process, it's like, bro, none of the Jews in Hollywood care about Torah. You know what I mean? This has not increased my status. I'm better off being the way that I am. All right, I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. All right, so just learned a little bit. I figured out how to work everything. I think because they have like this new thing. But yeah, I think we're all on the same page. And the key point is these are the type of discussions that we have to be having while we're learning. And these type of issues will allow us to build ideas, build unity amongst each other, build institutions, because at the end of the day, we're the solution, right? Other people are going to come along, but we're the solution. We're not learning Ram Call just because it's just us there or all the other sages that we've been learning in the perspective. We're learning this because we are being given wisdom to go out and make major changes in the world, right? And but the key thing is we have to remove all of the Egypt out of us. We have to remove all the Nachash out of us. And we have to see the world in the perspective of souls. As much as we've been taught like black this, black that, this is a tikkun for us to transcend that understanding, because I always use the example. Hip hop proves to me that I am supposed to communicate to all the nations. Everybody's rocking with us, right? And it's not us black people, the soul and the energy. That's an energy level. Where does the energy come from? The soul. Now, the melanation is an expression of that, for sure. For sure, melanation is an expression of the neshama and the power that is inside of that neshama, 100%, right? And that's why the people in the Middle East who received the Torah was that, like, even this week's Parsha, right? It's like, why do they have to say that in this land I'm giving you that you're gonna have the calendar? That's Africa, bro. You know what I'm saying? So it is a power with the melanation. It's not to remove that, but I have to put the melanation in the spiritual perspective, in a kabbalistic perspective. I can't use the European understanding of my skin and my appearance. I'm not erasing that. However, because of that melanation and how one more again, one more again, we back. We back. So yeah, so we're gonna learn a little bit. The two sections are relatively short in a way, and in a lot of other pasukim, I don't think I'm going to translate. But like I said, this is the conversations like when you guys are with your crew of guys, people. These are the type of conversations We have to have, because we have to see the global power that we have as people. And the only way to do that is by analyzing and focusing on the soul of all the human beings on planet Earth, and not just their souls, but also the parsufim, the uniqueness that's inside of their souls. And not just the parsufim, the name of God, right? That is expressing the parsufim in the soul itself and the body, right? There's all an expression of the name of God, and in how we're reflective of Adam Kadmon. So all the stuff on the ground, all the logic and all the wisdoms of this earth, of this world, it's not going to help us get there, right? So that's the idea of being able to focus. So, anyways, so to go back into, we're dealing with Tu Bishvat, the holiday of the trees, the connection to the trees, and really, it's not just about the trees in this particular holiday, which there's a tremendous amount of shefa, where we could correct sexual impurities at different times of our life, not just like now, but like in the past. Even the Arizal says past life. So all this is tikkunim. We can correct whatever blockages we have around dealing with darkness and coming out of the darkness. All these things we could fix, right? So, okay. Okay. So we're dealing with that. And so the first was like kind of like an introduction to the concept itself, right? This is what I was talking about. Now there's a preparation to eating the food itself, right? And what does it mean to eat food? Because now we're going to another, because normally we just think like if we're gonna say that like the elder was bringing up about the Shabbat table, right? The Shabbat table and all the things that we're doing. If the Shabbat table is in replacement for the for the altar, right? For the mishbeach. The mishbeach was designed as a place where we would come and do tshuva. It was a place of atonement, right? It was a place that we brought sacrifices for thankfulness, hodu Hashem, right? This is what the mishbeach is. So the Shabbat table is the mishbeach in our generation, our time, right? The Pesach table, the Shabbat table, the meals that we do even in between them, right? All these things are a frame of atonement, a frame of thankfulness, and that, right? So that's the table. So what we're saying now is the brachot itself, right? The bracha on the food itself also has a thing. So we should say, okay, hey, God, the Rabbanim command us, hey, we can't partake in God's creation without thinking that. We learned in the last class on this issue that the bracha brings shefa down to the angel, that the ministering angel that made that fruit grow, because only through that straight line, the kav, if it has to receive the life force of the creator. The life force of the creator is what allows it to reach its potential. It's not just the sun and the rain and the water and all this type of stuff. No, this is a part of it, but even the water has shefa. Even the sunlight has shefa, right? All these things are manifested, and they're all ruled by malachim, angels, right? So we understand that. So we bring down shefa when we did a bracha. We bring down an angel. We bring down Shefa for the angel. We bring down Shefa for our neshama, and we bring down Shefa for our parents' neshama, right? Whether they're alive or not here, right? They get energy from that through our dynamic. So now we're going into, now that we understand the framework, now we have to go even further, right? And also we have to understand, like, the different fruits represent different worlds, right? They said, like, kind of a side note, but a similar note, they said the four worlds, right? The Zohar talks about like why Abraham had four wives, why Jacob had four wives, and how why Isaac had one, right? So Abraham had four wives because he was correcting the different worlds through those wives. Like, so he had a wife that represented Salud, one represented Bria, one represented Yitzira, one represented Asiya. So he was fixing the worlds as he was working and fixing that wife. That's the perspective. Same thing by Jacob. Now they said Rivka was unique because she encompassed all the worlds, right? She was a unique soul that encompassed all the world. How does it work? I don't know. But the point is saying that's what she did. So there's this idea of fixing the worlds. So what we're learning is that the fruits that we eat on Tu Bishvat, or even in general, if we have this kavana, that we're actually fixing an aspect of that world for us, right? Because that's part of how the Shefa comes down. It comes down through the world. So now he's giving us a frame. Um, uh, he's giving us a frame on the preparation for the tikkun of the fruit. So now we understand the system, but how do we prepare ourselves? How do we go into this, right? Like the elder was saying, only if people knew what the Shabbat table represent, only if they knew what the challah represented, only if they knew what the kiddush on the grape juice or the wine represented, if they understood what the power of saying words of Torah over at the Shabbat table and singing songs and having happiness, like they understood the power of that and what energies they were bringing down from the heavens, everything would change. So he says in section 2, Mori Zatzal, his teacher, Haya Omer. So you say, my teacher used to say that one should intent through the eating of the fruit to correct the sin that Adam committed with the fruit of the tree. So when we're eating the fruits, right, we're correcting that because when Adam sinned, it brought destruction to all the worlds, right? All the worlds were blemished from that dynamic, right? So when we're eating the food, we have to have in mind that we're fixing a part of the we're fixing the sin of Adam, right? Deep stuff, right? Even though our intentions is directed towards this end of all days, even though our intention is directed towards this in all of our days of the year, a mitzvah is best when observed at its proper time. And this day is the beginning of the fruit of the tree. So he's saying this should be our kavana all the time. But the shefa, the start, like say we weren't doing this. Say you weren't eating your fruits and eating these different nuts and these different things, and you didn't have in mind. Maybe you just said the bracha, Berei pri ha'etz, Berei pri ha'dama, Berei pri ha'dama, right? You were saying things, Shakol ni'e bivro. You were saying the bracha. You're saying, Hashem, thank you for bringing this food into the world, and I'm eating it, and I'm partaking into your thing. But he's saying you got to go further. He's saying going further is understanding that by eating this fruit and having kavana, you're correcting the sin of Adam. You're correcting one of these worlds, right? He says we should have that. He said, but the beginning of the time of this fruit is where that shefa for that kavana comes down, right on the 15th of this month, right? We're in the second day now. So he says, ve asher lehayot kaver. Hodi anu. So he says, moreover, he says, we have frequently stated speech has the power to arouse the sphirot. I think Otina was just saying that. And to cause them to shine more wondrous with a very great light that sheds abundance, favor, blessings, and benefit through all the worlds. Consequently, before eating each fruit, it is proper to meditate on the mystery of its divine root. It's found in the Zohar and in some cases the Tikkunim in order to arouse their root above. But first of all, read the following sections. Okay, so he's talking about the different worlds, right? And he's saying that before we eat the food, we want to arouse the sphirot. We want to arouse Keter, Chokmah, Bina. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so it's 10 pasukim he's bringing on this part, but it keeps going, right? So he's bringing all these pasukim, and as you can see, like for example, okay, so the first pasukim he's bringing two verses. One from, so you can see it, he's saying he says Parshiot, Bereshit, he says Vayomer Elohim Vikaru Hamayim Ad. So, and he's bringing one pasukim, which is the beginning, which he's saying is this: Vayomer Elohim Yichavu Hamayim Mitachad Hashemayim Hal Makom Echad. So this is the pasuk that he's saying that Hashem gathers all the waters and he brings them into one place. But then he brings another pasuk. Yeah, he says it here. He says below the water, blah blah blah. So he says he reads this pasuk and then he reads this other one, Bereshit Bar Elohim, and then he's bringing the second part of this. She said, Ve'ahi Erev, Ve'ahi Boker, right? Yom Shelishi. So he's bringing that. Same thing, he's doing the same thing in Devarim. Wait, hold on. Or wait, here, I skipped. So yeah, Devarim, he's bringing this verse. Okay. So the question is, do you read the whole verse or do you read just the part he's saying right here? I think you'll be safe doing the whole verse, right? But the point is, these are the pasukim he says that you can read in preparation to eating the food to arouse this. So he's bringing these books and he's bringing these from Job's and he's bringing from Psalms. All these are from Psalms. He's bringing verses from the Zohar. These, all these. I mean, we could go all these verses. I'm just trying to get through it. So that's section two, the preparation, the preparation of the fruit. And we're going to stop here on the third one, right? We'll see what he says. Okay, so he says, okay, so that's the first part. The first part is knowing that we're correcting the sin of Adam by eating the fruit, right? That's the big inyan by this thing. And then underneath that, there's pasukim that are there to arouse the power of the sferot and the power of the worlds, right? So you say it by your speech and you're awakening because you have kavana. I'm saying this to awaken the world above. He says, Ana Ha'el. So he says, please God. I just saying like this. He says, please God who makes so okay, so this is the tefillah for the tukunim of the fruit. So this is a prayer that he's saying you should say, right? He says, please God who makes form, creates, and emanates supernatural worlds and created their likeness on earth below, according to their supernatural form and character. All of them you made with wisdom, supernatural forms above and the lower forms below to join together the tent so as to be one, right? The upper worlds and lower worlds, meaning the world of the Mishu, the Simsun, the full manifestation, and then all the way with the world of the Ein Sof, right? So when we say above and below, we know it's the world of Ein Sof, the world of Simsun, and not just Simsun as a broad concept, but the Mishu, the residue that allows us to see a fruit, not the light, the 99% that's covering it, right? You cause trees and grass to grow from the earth according to the structure and character of form above, so that human beings might gain wisdom and understanding through them, and thus grasp the hidden form. You appoint your holy angels over them as agents to oversee their growing and to cause Shefa and the power of your supernatural qualities to flow upon them. This is big stuff, bro. This is like real tefillah right here. It says Veyashu Peri. And he says the field that has yielded a harvest, every fruit tree produces fruit according to its kind. Umi parim maase eka. He says, and the earth was salted from the fruits. He's reading Pesukim. He says, and the fruit is salted from the fruit of your work, and so one may eat its fruit and be sated by its bounty. From the fruit, every living soul is enlivened, and through the spiritual power that is in them, which is the fruit of our mouth of your holy angels who guard the fruit. Shacher peri ha beitin. Habetin le hachayot. He says, and from me your fruit is found, and reward of children. Vehaya peri le machala ve'a lehu letid rufa. So he says, and the fruit is food, and it leaves a source of healing and and it says on this day the beginning of your deeds concerning the trees building and renewing a person will earn its fruit producing fruits of its kind and so for the days of budding will be so he's just going through these are all the tefillot that you're reading as a as the tefillah for the fruit, right? These are all the prayers. Maybe your will, Hashem Avaya, Hashem. The day he's using the name of God as we know the power of that, and the God and our God and God of our ancestors, and through the scarce power of eating the fruit, which we are now eating, and blessing while reflecting on the secrets of the supernatural root upon which they depend, right? The cove, and through in their supernatural sap will be aroused so that the Shefa, favor, blessings, and bounty would be bestowed upon them. May the angels appointed over them also be filled by the power shefa of their glory, and may it return and cause them to grow a second time from the beginning of the year and until the end, for the bounty and the blessing, for good life and peace. Ve'kaim lanu ed hadever shehivatachatanu. So he says, and fulfill us the words that you promised through Malachi, your seer. He says, and I will banish and devour from among you, and he will not destroy the fruits of your earth, and the vines of your field will not miscarry, it says the name, says, you to evolve him, and he said, look down from your scarce dwelling place in heaven and bless us this year with the bounty. Anyway, these are all pasukim. I could keep going. I mean, you guys, you know where it's at. I just don't want to read all of them right now. I don't have a fruit in front of me, but these are the point. We've been on there for a couple hours. So anyway, so the point is saying that there's two levels of the preparation. One is the kavana, right, which is the fact that we are eating these fruits to correct the sin of Adam Rishon and to fix all the worlds, right? These worlds that all the shefa comes down, and we can arouse the sphirot, right? The energy, the 99% that's around the food, to be able to receive to become a kli for God's light. So we do that by reciting specific pasukim with the kavana of bringing out the kalim, or the vessel of the 99% that's connected to the fruit. And then further, then we go on and then we have tefillah, right? Then the tefillah is bringing down that light from the upper worlds, and it comes and it creates a world between the 99%, right? So one is the vessel we create through intentions, and then we actually bring down that light through the tefillah itself. And it's a long, as you can see, it's a long list of different tefillah points. But this is the thing. But it's not just. I mean, obviously, during the Tu BiShvat, it's a very big level, right? It's a very big level, and so we're doing it on that night. But the kavana should be throughout the year that when we're eating, we're correcting something, we're fixing something, we're bringing down light. We're not eating for the sake of eating. We're eating for the sake of feeding our soul, feeding angels, and feeding our parents and our family and our community. Um, um, our community and all these different things. We're feeding off of that understanding, right? So anyway, so we made progress. There's one more section left, and I think we should be pretty clear on the whole thing. Any responses, any thoughts on this?
No, yeah, Baruch Hashem. I think it's just and like Otanel said, I believe it was Sunday, and I'm so excited that we're covering this because we and my family, we were reading through it last night, and this is just a powerful time frame. These are these areas when you feel like there's not, like things are like asleep, things are not. There's not a lot of movement going on, but these are the best times to produce tikkun, and it's kind of like when we talk about just eating the fruits. I thought it was very powerful that when you pick up the fruit and you have that intention to eat it, and you have the intention that you're gonna bless it. It to me it was like based reading this. It's like an angel shows up, and that angel is waiting for you to give that bracha. And when you give that bracha, what happens is that he the I want to make sure I'm saying it right. The shifra, the shifa or the flow comes down, and it connects with him. It connects with that angel, and that angel then takes that energy and causes the wherever you got the fruit from that tree, it causes that fruit tree to produce more fruit. And I just thought that was just amazing. That's like it's a cycle. And then from the standpoint of you're eating it, and then Hashem takes that fruit and he puts it through a process of purification. where it was corrupt, and now it's becoming pure, where it's coming from impurity, and now it's becoming holy through the 32 teeth process of you chewing it in your mouth, and based upon his, how many times he's mentioned in the creation story. And so I just, man, this is like just some really deep, high level stuff that has just been a blessing. And I just say Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, Elder, I missed your point, but I get what you're saying. Like a little bit went out on me. Um, you went out a little bit. Just that last part you're saying.
Yeah, just the whole aspect of understanding the cycle and how we're a part of that cycle is when we pick up a fruit, especially during this time frame, we pick up the fruit and we pick up that fruit and we have the intentions to eat it. It's like an angel comes immediately. And when we say the bracha, you have the intention to say the bracha and you say it with kavana. That angel receives the shifra, and that energy, that abundance, that flow comes to him. And then when you eat the fruit after saying the blessing, it gives him power to cause that fruit tree to produce more fruit. And then as you're eating it, Hashem takes it, that fruit that was impure, and makes it holy through the process of you chewing it through the 32 teeth, the 30 teeth, that's in the mouth. It represents his how many times he's actually mentioned in the creation story. And so I just think it's powerful cycle. Baruch Hashem.
The Otino, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Any reflections on this?
Uh, it reminds me of the verse in Tehillim where it
Mm.
says that, the heavens belong to Hashem, but the earth was given over to mankind. And it's kind of that sense that, we're designed to bring heaven to earth. We're designed to activate the unseen, to bring Baraka into this reality. So you say a Baraka over whatever food or whatever, drink, whatever it is, you're doing much more than just the process of eating. On a external level, sorry, you're eating food, your body needs it. But on the highest level, you're actually activating the spiritual essence of that property and you're giving it back up to Hashem. You're preparing a place for Hashem's divine essence to permeate within the world. So, these teachings, this is not just for Kalal Yisrael, it's for the whole world, because the whole world is designed to create a space for divinity. And that's how we make heaven on earth. That's how we fulfill our potential. So, it just goes, and this conversation we've had today is amazing. Baruch Hashem, all perspectives, but it just goes into, the purpose of B'nai Israel is to be that light to the nations, to be a light to the world, so humanity can fulfill its purpose. Because you have people who just eat, we're just eating food. Yeah, it's nothing, but it's like so much more to it. The inanimate world has a purpose. The animate world has a purpose. The vegetative, every aspect of reality is designed to glorify its maker, to reflect that divinity. And as human beings, we've been blessed to have the opportunity to draw out all of it. What I mean? You kind of see what Moshe Rabbeinu, like when the Erev Rav joined in. Hashem was like, "Hey, what you doing?" Moshe wanted to bring them all, and Hashem's like, "See, your people are acting up," but Moshe had that spark of wanting to elevate everything. He wanted to draw out that light, that might be concealed, that might have a husk. He wanted to draw it out. I think that's our purpose. That's the purpose of learning Torah. That's the purpose of interacting with the different aspects of reality, is to bring out those lights, to offer it up to our Creator, to show Hashem, thank you. Giving us this opportunity to glorify you and magnify you in everything that we do, because everything only has one goal. It's only to serve Hashem, to glorify Hashem. We were created to benefit from the goodness of Hashem. So now Hashem made the world exactly the way it is. It's made this way concealed so you can draw it out, so you can earn that place in Olam Haba, so you can do it to coon of the world. And you have that choice. So, like, my father used to always tell me, just choose wisely. Whatever it is that you do, choose wisely. Whatever path you go, make sure it's the wise decision. Because this life isn't a game. So, Rukasha.
Man, I'm in. Beautiful. And I would say, I mean, it's like it's a crazy thing, right? Because like when we think about, and I think Otino hit it on this point. Is a big strength. It's like this idea of, because we've been told to focus so much on ourselves and our people by outside sources and internally, that obviously there's a cocoon for us to see ourselves in a frame of the whole world, right? Because the whole system is telling us, oh, well, you're black, you should think about your people and this and your struggle, bro. We've heard it all the way through, but we got the greatest moments in our cultural experience in America have been us coming together to fight against oppression, right? That's what we've seen. That we just had Martin Luther King's birthday Martin Luther King Day the other day, and that's been a big part. And they keep ramming it in our face. But the reality is that if we're defining ourselves as Israel, as Zera Israel, yeah, then that means that we have a responsibility for the whole world. And it makes sense that the world is telling us the opposite, because it's the tikkun that we're supposed to transcend. So I'm going to think a lot about this, and maybe think about, you guys could think about it too, but I'm thinking about writing prayers and meditations for us to, um, prayers and meditations for us before we even go into prayer, to meditate on all the souls of humanity. It's very easy to do it on the Temple Mount, by the way, because you're with the light force of God. You feel it. It's something you can't even describe. So you see yourself as a steward for all of humanity. But you don't need to be on the Temple Mount to have that perspective, right? But we have to start training our minds and meditating on all the souls, seeing souls. When we walk down the street, yes, I see a body, but let me imagine what that person's souls look like and what those unique lights look like, and the name of God that's within that everywhere we go. And having that in our tefillah and having that in our makshava and our thinking process. Anyways, so I'm getting ready to go on Zion Lex. I will be turning up on Captain Tazariak on there. I will be turning up your boy Deacon. Let's go. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen.